this is Dread from Epic Builds, and in today's video topic, we will go over day 2 of the Bone Curse Skeleton Necromancer. We've had a lot of significant upgrades since my first concept, and have made it all the way to the level 90 monoliths and finished Spirits of Fire. If you're just clicking on this video and haven't seen this build before, I'd suggest watching the video I posted before this, as it will add much needed context. If you want to see the current progress of the concept, I'd suggest following the Twitch, as I've been streaming this build for the past few days now. So the first thing I changed was how we are applying Dreadshade. I was convinced placing it as a curse on enemies would be the best way of going about things, as of course we are always nearby enemies. That was wrong. Since we have a large amount of range minions, a lot of situations we end up in, we just end up off-screening enemies. We are pretty much forced to use Dreadshade and maintain it now, as it almost doubles our damage, and it is the main reason we are a Necromancer in the first place. Placing Dreadshade on enemies was not consistent enough, and this means that we had to change our strategy. So 2 patches ago, EHG reworked Necromancer. In that Necromancer rework, they added a new type of skeleton into the game called Skeleton Vanguards. He uses a spear and is kinda meh. He was made so that all the Summon Wraith mechanics inside Necro's passive tree could be replaced with him, as they changed their philosophy on Summon Wraith and replaced all places on the passive tree with Summon Skeleton Vanguard instead. He has a max of 3 minions. Normally, he's kind of meh, because he has no passive tree, or no tree at all. But this is the one build that utilizes and best performs with them, as we don't care about the base minion stats, we just care about them having as many as possible, having as many minions as possible. So 3 extra minions? Color me stoked. How we summon them, I will go in depth in the video here in a few minutes. The best thing about these vanguards is since they are melee minions, they aggro on enemies and close the distance with them. So they're a perfect candidate to place Dreadshade on them, since they are tanky enough to deal with the 100% increased damage taken from the buff, so we can just walk around and just make sure that we are in the circle. Meaning our damage on Bone Curse is always up, so we can even apply and explode enemies with Bone Curse at range, making the playstyle infinitely better and more fun to play. So with the +1 skeleton on the chest, and eventually 2 hollow fingers, hopefully with LP on them, we can get up to 20 minions, all skeletons, 12 archers, 5 mages, and 3 vanguards, meaning on a single target we're up to about 7 player-sized Bone Curses per minion attack. So it's like as if we have hit the enemy 7 times per, attack. Hopefully this is enough damage for endgame. If you haven't already, I'd suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that's the best way to support my efforts here at Epic Builds. With all that being said, let's get into the video, shall we? Alright, here we are in game with the build. So we are now level 78. We are actually climbing pretty quickly now through the monolith progression. We're only about 10 hours into the build, technically. I did play a little bit off stream, but that's because I wanted to refine some things. Now, for the Skeleton Vanguard specifically, right? We can talk about summoning them. So it requires a little bit of a hassle. So we have 2 nodes into Dark Retribution. This makes it so whenever one of my minions dies, it summons a Vanguard. Now, to get our minions to die, we need to put some volatile zombies on our bar real quick and have them die. And just keep doing this until you have 3. And then after you summon them, they're really tanky, which I'll show you in a second here. They are insanely tanky. Once we eventually get them, it takes a little bit. It takes a little bit of spamming here. It's a little annoying, but once you do have them summoned, it's fine. There are a few other ways you could go about it, but this is the most efficient way in terms of not having to respec anything or anything like that. Just have to wait till the last one summons here. Come on. Come on. There you go. Beautiful. Now we have all 3 Skeleton Vanguards. Now, what I like about them is that since they have a spear, their AI is different, right? They go and attack the enemy here. You see that? So what that means is I can place Dreadshade on them and always have Dreadshade up. As you can tell here, we have a lot of decent DPS here because we're doing like 3k per, right, per skeleton with the bone curse and all that. That means since we have 18 minions, it's like 3k. That's like about 50k DPS so far, and that's actually pretty good for this kind of setup, especially for skeletons. That's insane for skeletons because skeletons usually have terrible damage, right? And it's a little bit more than that. It depends how much armor shred and stuff you have. Now, one thing I really like about them is they have that extra HP thanks to the intelligence scaling, so they're actually really tanky. And as well, uh, we use this note here, the 10% chance on death. Now it's supposed to say death. It says kill here, but it's supposed to say death. It's just a typo. And with all that, and now we have a +1 chest, we just need 2 hollow fingers and we're at our max skeletons. And that makes the build feel good overall. And that's how we summon our vanguards. Now for gearing upgrades, I dropped this helmet. This helmet's absolutely insane. It dropped with the crit, and then we sealed away the vitality so we can put increased damage per skeletal mage. Now we can actually up this. Ah, damn. Oh well, it's okay. We get like 125%, 120% increased damage from this helmet, which is insane. Of course, everything else it gives us. Uh, we also upgraded to this chest. Obviously, this is terrible, but like it's what we have right now. It's what we can use. The intelligence is really strong, like I said, because not only does it buff our rip blood, it also buffs our minions' health. We also got a few other upgrades. Our belts way better. We're closer to the crit avoidance cap. Same with our boots. We're slowly starting to replace all our items with like better modifiers. We finally upgraded to a profane wand. This gives us a bunch of increased curse damage, and it turns all of our damage into necrotic damage, which is really strong because we actually get a bunch of increased damage from Dreadshade. That's only increased necrotic damage. So that actually is a lot of increased damage. And we can also go into Necromancer here and grab Grasp of Fate for a bunch more increased damage. And of course, we can like move around points and stuff like that and get a bunch more increased necrotic damage because it's everywhere, right? And Acolyte. So having our damage be forced to be necrotic is nice. And of course, that increased curse damage applies to our bone curse because it counts as a curse. Same thing with the cursed bones as well. So that's actually our best in slot items here for like our implicits. Of course, like I said, the rest of the gear is pretty trash. This amulet's still the same amulet I had when I started. Obviously, we want crit and crit multi. I only have 250 crit multi. We obviously, you can't see it because I'm in the way. Here you go. 250 crit multi. We want way more than this. Like 350 would suffice, I think. I have crit. I have actually a decent unread scroll now, so our crit. We're very close to crit cap. I don't know exactly how much crit we have because we're not taking into account the fizz crit here, but we have a decent amount of crit. We need a little bit more, obviously, but that will come with time as we get better gear. Now, I do want to put crit multi on this as well because like we get plenty of increased damage from just being, a necromancer and stuff like that. So hopefully, eventually, we can upgrade to that. And that's pretty much it for all the changes I made today. I didn't make anything in terms of the passive tree except for mainly Dark Retribution. We, of course, filled out more nodes, got the extra skeleton, got the Veins of Malice. Like, nothing too crazy. Eventually, we're going to fill out Mortal Tether. Eventually, we're going to fill out Grasp of Fate. Try to get as much increased damage possible. Maybe try to go for this increased damage as well. Because right now, really all we're missing is just damage. Like that's all we're missing. The whole concept of the build works. The defenses of the build work thanks to Rip Blood being insane in terms of sustain. Because since we're at 58 intelligence here, we gain 232% effectiveness. So that means we have 10 health here, 20 health here. So that's 30. And then that multiplied by our healing effectiveness is 232. That's about like 60. We're about 60 per time we use Rip Blood. And then that times 3 again, well, it's like 250. It's like 300 actually. It's close to 300%. So it actually goes all the way up to like 240 per rip blood, which is a lot of our HP. So eventually when we get a little bit more as well, it'll be a lot more than that. Yeah, as you can tell though, without our bone curse here, I'm waiting for it to go away. Our skeletons are dealing significantly less damage. There you go. Like they're doing like not as much as they could be. Now, when we put on the Bone Curse, we're doing like significantly more damage thanks to that. It's really hard to tell, obviously, because of the flurry of numbers, but those 2K crits there, 3K crits, that's our Bone Curse popping off, and it essentially just doubles the skeleton's damage. And eventually, like I said, we are nowhere near refined. We have barely have any increased damage. Like, we can go crazy on increased damage. We're missing increased damage on our chest because the increased damage per skeletal mage, that could be like another 250 instead of that fizz crit. We could always get increased damage on our rings, stuff like that. We can get more intelligence everywhere because that'll give us increased damage as well. So there's a lot of ways of getting more damage. We could also get more flat thanks to this huge idol being kind of shitty. Like, there's a lot of ways of us getting a lot more damage, and I'm hoping that that will be enough to scale into endgame. So that's pretty much it for the build today. Oh, for the video today. With all that being said, thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you're at, and